Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're tapping into the streets of Carson, California, and we're going to be looking at the 190 East Coast Crips and how one of their members, by the name of Carlton Payne, executed two men at a toddler's birthday party back in the early 90s. Now, the 190 East Coast Crips are a predominantly African-American street gang from the east side of Carson. They block stretches from Del Alamo Boulevard to Wilmington and University Avenue. They ally with all East Coast Crips, and they rival gangs including Stevenson Village Crips, the Compton Pyroos, Carson Pyroos, and many other hoods. Now, Carlton Payne was raised by his mother, who was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Eventually, Carlton's aunt and uncle would take him in after his mother could no longer care for him. As a teen, Carlton would start exhibiting strange behavior, and this behavior would lead his uncle Melvin to taking Carlton to see a child psychiatrist. Now, later on, Carlton would start to attend Avalon High School, where he was considered a loner and he liked to keep to himself. Now, that same strange behavior that he had years prior would get much worse. Now, Carlton loved lunchtime, and he typically would eat a lot of food. But when he did eat, he would eat uncontrollably. Students would see Carlton eat 3 to 5 burritos all at once and stuff them down his throat. His uncle would also state that there would be times where Carlton would be heard in his bedroom making strange noises, even barking like a dog. Now, after he would graduate high school, Carlton would then enroll in the Marine Corps, but this wouldn't last too long. Carlton didn't like to be disrespected, and this would lead to him yelling back at one of his sergeants, and he would eventually be discharged. Around the time he was discharged, Carlton would start drinking heavily, and he would become extremely violent. And this would lead to him being wanted by the sheriff's department after attacking a Carson circuit bus driver. Eventually, Carlton would turn himself in, but he would claim that he didn't remember attacking anyone. Years later, Carlton would join the 190 East Coast Crips. He would then eventually start dating a woman by the name of Ira Pollard, who he would go on to have a child with. And on Saturday, June 5th of 1993, Carlton and Pollard would go to a child's birthday party in Hawthorne, given by a friend. Now, being that Carlton was from the East Coast and he was headed into another area that wasn't his own hood, he would make sure that he was strapped. As some time went by, Pollard noticed that Carlton's gun could be seen in his waistband, so she immediately told him to put it up. So Carlton decided to put the gun in a child's diaper bag. While at the party, Carlton would start drinking heavily from a quarter bottle of Henny. And as the celebration continued, a group of men walked into the party. This included Daryl Benford, Marcus McKay, and two best friends, Marwin Cook and Richard Ballin. A couple of the men would then go into a bedroom and smoke weed, and Carlton would join them. Daryl Benford was wearing all red, and this would catch Carlton's eye. Carlton would then decide to walk out the room and go up to his girlfriend, Pollard, and tell her that some Bloods was at the party, but he wasn't tripping over it. For some reason, Carlton believed that they were members of the Crenshaw Mafia Bloods, but Carlton would then still go back into that bedroom and continue to smoke weed with the men. At some point in time, the group of men started talking about the gangs in the area, and Benford would tell Carlton that his brother was associated with the 11-8 East Coast Crips. One thing led to another. Carlton and Benford started to argue, and according to witnesses, nobody threatened Carlton or even acted aggressively towards him. But regardless, Carlton would leave the room, go out and grab the diaper bag, and get his gun. Now, his girlfriend Pollard noticed Carlton acting strange, so she went and grabbed the diaper bag and noticed that the gun was missing. Eventually, everyone would gather into the kitchen area because it was time to sing happy birthday for the 3-year-old toddler. As everyone started to sing, Carlton would pull out a pair of brown gloves and put them on. One of the men in the kitchen noticed this and said something to Carlton, and that's when Carlton pulled out his gun. Immediately, Pollard tried to stop him, but he pushed her away. Carlton then aimed his gun and pointed it at Marwin Cook's head and shot him. Next, he shot Cook's friend, Richard Ballin, in the head also. Carlton continued to fire his gun, shooting Daryl Benford in both arms, and he also shot a 4-year-old child in the leg. Another individual was also shot. He was shot in the shoulder. There were nearly 15 people at this party, which included 2 men who decided to jump from a second-story window to escape the gunfire. After all was said and done, Carlton would flee the scene. The police would be called, and once they arrived on the scene, they would find bodies all over the home, and they would hear the sounds of yelling and crying from men, women, and children. Both best friends, Marvin Cook and Richard Ballin, were pronounced dead at the scene. Others who were wounded would be taken to a nearby hospital and treated and eventually released. As officers began their investigation, witnesses would come forward to identify Carlton as the shooter. Just days later, police would find Carlton hiding at his girlfriend's house on Oceanside. He would be arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and attempted murder. And by 1995, his trial would begin. Prosecutors would show that none of the victims at the party were gang members, especially not Merwin Cook and Richard Ballin, who were both college students at the time. Another witness would then testify during the trial that to his knowledge, no one at that party were active members of the Crenshaw Mafia Bloods. But Carlton Payne's defense would argue that Payne felt that his life was in danger, and they would also talk about that he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, which he inherited from his mother. They would even have a doctor by the name of Dr. Richard Hutchberg that Carlton would spend 40 days with, who would confirm that he believed that Carlton suffered from schizophrenia. But during cross-examination, Hutchberg would admit that Payne lied to other doctors about faking a mental illness. One of the doctors even stated that Payne, during his evaluation, got down on all fours and began barking like a dog, while another stated that Payne did not speak during the evaluation, but only banged his head against the wall multiple times. But regardless of him lying, Hutchberg believed that Carlton Payne was still mentally disturbed. And at one point during the trial, Payne got up and tried to walk out of the courtroom, but was tackled by deputies. But regardless of his history or his story or background, the jury just didn't buy it. Right before deliberations began, Carlton would tell the judge to suck his d. These outbursts will continue out during deliberations. Now, only one day of deliberating, the jury would come back with a verdict. Carlton Payne was found guilty of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life without parole. But as the judge continued talking, Carlton would yell out to the judge, "This is for your mama," while waving his middle finger. He will also call the judge a white devil. And to this day, Carlton Payne is still trying to appeal this case, and he's still serving life in prison. I would like to thank everybody for tapping in, and I'll see y'all next time.